I'm Emma, your storyteller, and today I'm sharing a story that will absolutely break your heart, but also make you think deeply about what we actually want in love and relationships. Because what you're about to hear is the painful truth about a woman named Scarlet who discovered that sometimes the man you think is your perfect match is actually just someone waiting for the right moment to show you who he really is. This is a story about betrayal, about wasted time, about believing in someone so completely that you didn't see the warning signs flashing right in front of you. It's about a woman who gave everything to help someone grow, only to watch him walk away and find happiness with someone who represents everything she stands against. And the worst part? She still doesn't know if she was wrong for trying. Let me take you back to where this all began. Her name is Scarlet, and she's 28 years old. She works in healthcare administration, and she's the kind of person who knows exactly who she is and what she believes in. She doesn't apologize for having strong opinions. She doesn't stay quiet when she sees injustice. She's vocal about women's rights, passionate about social equality, and she shares that passion online and offline. Some people admire that about her. Others find it exhausting. It was January when she met Grayson at a friend's game night. He was 30, dressed well, seemed put together. He worked in logistics or shipping. Honestly, Scarlet didn't really care about the specifics of his job. What mattered was that he seemed different from all the other men she'd been wasting her time with. He listened when she talked. He insisted on paying for dates, even though she could absolutely pay for herself. And most importantly, he never made her feel bad for being passionate about the things that mattered to her. For the first time in years, Scarlet thought she'd finally found someone who wouldn't be threatened by a strong, independent woman. Someone who could actually handle her. The early months were perfect. Almost too perfect, like something out of a romance movie. Grayson would pick her up for dates. They'd talk for hours about everything. About life, about the world, about what they wanted for their futures. And when Scarlet would bring up her passion for feminism and social justice, he wouldn't shut her down. He'd listen. He'd even like some of her posts about women's rights on Facebook. He'd nod along when she explained systemic oppression to him. Scarlet interpreted his quiet acceptance as understanding. She thought he was processing everything, learning, growing. It felt so refreshing after years of dating men who couldn't handle a basic conversation about equality. By month 6, they started talking about moving in together. Scarlet was excited. Not just excited, she was hopeful. This felt like it was going somewhere. They had conversations about marriage, about long-term goals, about what they both wanted from life. They talked about their values, their dreams, their visions for the future. Scarlet genuinely believed they were building something beautiful together. Something real. Something that would last. But here's where it gets complicated. Looking back, Scarlet would realize there were signs. Little things she missed or chose to ignore. Like how Grayson never really engaged deeply with the important topics she brought up. How he'd always try to steer conversations toward lighter, more casual subjects. How when she'd talk passionately about injustice or inequality, he'd just nod along without really saying much. At the time, Scarlet thought he was just more laid back than her. She thought his quietness meant he was processing, thinking, taking it all in. But what if his silence meant something else? What if he was silently judging everything she believed in, just waiting for the right moment to show her his true self? Around month 7, things started to shift, and Scarlet began to notice it. There were these little comments from Grayson that felt off, that felt cold, but he'd always frame them as jokes, so Scarlet couldn't call him out without seeming oversensitive, or like she couldn't take a joke. When she shared an article about toxic masculinity on Facebook, he saw it and made this dismissive comment about how some people take this stuff way too seriously. When Scarlet asked what he meant by that, he just laughed it off and said he was kidding. But something in his tone had changed, and Scarlet felt it. The first major incident happened at his friend Trevor's place during a casual gathering. Scarlet was having a conversation with some of the other women there about workplace discrimination. And there was this one girl. Scarlet describes her as the kind of woman who thinks feminism has gone too far, who believes everything is equal now, who thinks we don't need women's rights movements anymore. Scarlet couldn't just sit there and listen to that level of misinformation. So she did what she always does. She decided to educate her. She explained how systemic oppression actually works. She shared real facts and statistics about wage gaps, about glass ceiling effects that are still very much happening in workplaces today. She was doing what she thought was important work. She was spreading awareness. But throughout this entire conversation, Grayson was just sitting there looking uncomfortable. He wasn't backing her up. He wasn't showing solidarity. He wasn't even engaging. He was just sitting there looking increasingly tense. Later, in the car on the way home, he actually told her that she'd been a little intense. He said maybe she should have just let it go because they were guests in someone's home and it probably wasn't the right place to have that kind of discussion. Scarlet was shocked. She asked him, "Since when is educating people about human rights being intense?" She explained to him that these weren't matters of opinion. These were documented facts about how systems of oppression operate in our society. Grayson tried to backtrack and said he just meant they were there to have fun, not debate politics. But Scarlet couldn't let that go. She tried to make him understand that calling out injustice isn't politics. It's moral responsibility. It's basic decency. The fact that he couldn't see the difference felt like a major red flag to her. Around the same time, Scarlet started noticing other concerning patterns. Grayson was acting weird about her online activism. She's very active on Reddit in feminist communities. She shares educational content on Facebook regularly. She sees it as raising awareness, as using her platform to make a difference. But Grayson started making these passive-aggressive comments about how much time she spent arguing with strangers on the internet. When she explained to him that it's activism, that she's trying to make a difference, he'd do this dismissive little laugh that made her skin crawl. Then there was the way he started treating her friends. Her friend Issa is what Scarlet calls super woke. They have deep conversations about social issues and systemic problems. But when Issa would come over, Grayson would suddenly become really quiet. He'd find reasons to leave the room, to go work on something else, to basically disappear. At first, Scarlet thought maybe he was just giving them space for girl talk. But then she realized the truth. He was avoiding Issa because he couldn't handle being around women who speak their minds, who refuse to pretend everything is fine when it's not. And then came something that bothered Scarlet even more. Grayson started making these subtle comments about her appearance. Digs disguised as compliments. Like when she'd wear a blazer to work. He'd make some comment about how she looked intimidating, or too serious. When she'd style her hair in a sleek ponytail, he'd say he preferred it down because it looked softer and more feminine. Scarlet recognized these for what they were. Manipulation tactics designed to make women doubt themselves, to make them smaller, to make them easier to control. Then came the Netflix series moment. They were watching this show about women in corporate environments, and there was a scene dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace. Scarlet made a comment about how common that was, how most women have experienced some form of harassment in their lives. And Grayson literally rolled his eyes and said, "Here we go again." Like discussing real issues that affect millions of women was just some burden for him to endure. Like her bringing up legitimate concerns about women's safety was just her being predictable and tiresome. But instead of ending things right there, Scarlet did something she would later deeply regret. She decided she could help him. She genuinely believed that if she just approached it the right way, if she just gave him the right resources, if she just had enough patience, she could help Grayson understand. She thought maybe he was just sheltered, just ignorant. She thought she could open his eyes to what was really happening in the world. So Scarlet became very intentional about educating him. She started sharing well-researched articles throughout the day about gender pay gaps, workplace discrimination, about how patriarchal systems hurt everyone. She sent him documentaries. She created opportunities for meaningful conversations about oppression and inequality. When he wouldn't respond to her texts about the articles, she'd bring them up during dinner or when they were hanging out. She was trying to create space for him to process the information and ask questions. But he'd just nod along politely. She could tell he wasn't really absorbing any of it. It was like talking to a wall. Sometimes he'd give her these blank stares when she tried to explain complex concepts like intersectionality or systemic privilege. And whenever she tried to have real conversations about how these issues affected their daily lives and relationships, he'd completely shut down. When she tried to explain that his discomfort with her friend Issa was probably rooted in internalized misogyny and discomfort with strong women, he accused her of psychoanalyzing everything. He said she was reading too much into what he claimed were just normal social interactions. Scarlet tried to make him understand that these interactions aren't normal when you actually understand how society conditions us to react to strong women. But he just wouldn't get it. She also started paying more attention to his friend group, and honestly, it explained so much. His friends Trevor and the others were exactly the type of men you'd expect. The kind who make borderline offensive jokes about women and then act like anyone who doesn't laugh just can't take a joke. When Scarlet would point out why certain comments were problematic and harmful, they'd exchange these looks like she was being overly dramatic or sensitive. And Grayson would just sit there silently. He wouldn't educate them. He wouldn't challenge them. He wouldn't do anything. Everything came to a head about 3 weeks into their relationship problems, when Scarlet finally decided to have what she thought would be an honest conversation about their future. They were at his place making dinner, and she brought up moving in together. But this time, she wanted to make sure they were actually compatible on the important values and principles first. She explained how crucial it was to her that her future partner understood her beliefs and could actively support her activism. She said she needed someone who could be a real ally in fighting against oppressive systems. Not just someone who'd passively tolerate her convictions while remaining uninvolved. Scarlet thought she was being mature and reasonable. But Grayson took it as a personal attack on his character. He got this look on his face like she was speaking a foreign language. And then he said something that shocked Scarlet to her core. He said he'd been thinking about their relationship a lot lately, and he wasn't sure they were as compatible as he'd originally thought. When Scarlet asked what he meant by that, he went on about how he didn't really understand why she was so obsessed with feminism and social justice issues. Scarlet knew she had to be completely honest with him. She explained that feminism wasn't some hobby or phase she was going through. It's a core part of her identity. It's how she sees and interacts with the world. She told him that if he had a fundamental problem with that, then he had a problem with her as a complete person. She also pointed out that his obvious discomfort with strong, outspoken women was exactly the kind of internalized misogyny that feminism exists to address. But instead of listening and trying to understand, Grayson got defensive. He started saying things that Scarlet had never heard from him before. He said that modern feminism has gone too far. He said it's divisive and unfairly attacks men. He actually said he thought feminism was making relationships unnecessarily difficult because it teaches women to be suspicious and critical of men instead of working together harmoniously. And then he said the thing that revealed everything. He said he didn't think he could marry someone who identified as a feminist. He said he wanted a partner who could appreciate traditional relationship dynamics, someone who wouldn't analyze everything through a political lens. When Scarlet pointed out that those traditional dynamics were literally designed to oppress women, he said she was proving his point about taking everything too seriously and making everything about gender politics. She tried to explain that what he was saying was deeply misogynistic. She said that wanting a woman who won't challenge unfair systems is literally wanting to benefit from and perpetuate sexism. But he completely lost his mind and said she was calling him a sexist just for having different opinions. Different opinions. They weren't talking about pineapple on pizza or which movie to watch. They were talking about basic human equality and dignity. Then came the part that hurt the most. He said he'd been walking on eggshells around her for months because he was afraid of saying something that would set her off or trigger another lecture about social issues. Like holding people accountable for harmful views is some kind of character flaw. Scarlet told him that if he thought supporting women's rights was too much work for him, then he was exactly the kind of man that feminism exists to educate. That's when he said he was done with the conversation. He said maybe they should take a break to think about what they both really wanted. A break. After 8 months of building something real. The next morning, Scarlet woke up thinking maybe they'd both just been heated in the moment. Maybe once he had time to cool down, he'd realize how wrong he'd been. So she texted him asking if they could talk and approach things differently. His response was shocking. He said he'd been thinking overnight, and he didn't see how they could move forward given their fundamental differences. When she called him to actually talk, he basically dumped her over the phone like they were teenagers who'd been dating for a few weeks. He said they had fundamental incompatibilities, and he didn't want to keep trying to make something work that was causing both of them stress. He made it sound like her passion for equality was just some annoying hobby inconveniencing his comfortable life. He said he thought she'd be happier with someone who shared her passion for activism. He said he needed someone more easygoing about social issues and politics. Easygoing. He wanted someone who would just ignore injustice and smile while the world burned around her. After they hung up, Scarlet was in complete shock. She kept thinking about all the time and emotional energy she'd invested in helping him grow, and how he'd just thrown it all away because he was too comfortable in his privilege to do any real self-reflection. The anger that followed was intense. Not just about him dumping her, but about how he'd wasted months pretending to be someone he clearly wasn't. If he knew from the beginning that he couldn't handle being with a feminist, why didn't he just say so? Why did he let her think they had a real future? Scarlet posted about the situation on Reddit, and the support was overwhelming. So many women shared similar stories about men who seemed supportive initially, but then revealed their true colors when asked to actually engage with feminist principles beyond surface-level tolerance. But 6 months later, Scarlet found out through mutual friends that Grayson was engaged. Engaged to a woman named Hannah, who apparently thinks feminism is too aggressive. Through a friend's Instagram, Scarlet saw that Hannah is a nurse practitioner with an advanced degree and a good income. But she's already talking about stepping back from her career after marriage. Hannah is everything Scarlet expected. The kind of woman who posts about being a traditional wife, about how blessed she is to let her man lead. She's willing to make herself smaller and more dependent for Grayson's comfort. And here's what really hurt. Grayson looks genuinely happy. In all the photos Scarlet has of them together, there was always this slight tension in his eyes. But with Hannah, he looks completely relaxed and content. Like he finally found someone who won't ask him to be better or challenge him to think about anyone other than himself. The engagement happened really fast too, which somehow just proves everything. He probably proposed within 3 months because Hannah was so easy and agreeable compared to the stress of being with someone who actually had standards and expectations. It's been 6 months now, and Scarlet is still struggling with the dating scene. Every guy she meets either doesn't understand feminism at all or claims to be an ally before showing his true colors the moment she expresses a strong opinion about social justice. It's like Grayson ruined her for other men because now she can immediately see all their red flags and manipulative behavior. Her friends keep telling her she dodged a bullet, that she'll find someone better. But 6 months later, she's still wondering if there are any men left who can actually handle being with a truly independent woman. Maybe Grayson was right that feminism makes relationships harder, but not for the reasons he thought. It's harder because most men are too weak and selfish to do the actual work of examining their privilege and growing as human beings. The thing that gets Scarlet the most is knowing that Grayson gets to be happy while she's left picking up the pieces. She wasted 8 months trying to educate someone who had absolutely no interest in learning or growing. She gave him her time, her emotional energy, her passion. And he rewarded her by choosing someone who represents everything she stands against. But Scarlet has made a decision. She's completely done compromising her values or making herself smaller for men who aren't worth her time or energy. If being a feminist means she has to be single, then at least she'll be single with her integrity and principles intact. Wow. What a story, right? This is Emma, reminding you that sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Scarlet gave Grayson everything, her time, her patience, her belief that he could grow. And in the end, he chose the easier path. If this story resonated with you, if you've experienced something similar or you know someone who has, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Your support means everything to us here at Mrs. Emma's channel. And please, share this story with your friends. Share it with the women in your life who are tired of compromising their values for men who aren't willing to do the work. Let's start a conversation about what we really deserve in our relationships. Most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss these powerful stories. New videos every week bringing you real stories about love, heartbreak, growth, and the complicated journey of being a woman in this world. Thank you so much for listening. This is Emma, your storyteller. I'll see you in the next one.